So let me ask you guys this. Are there too many factions in All Elite Wrestling, aka AEW? Are they? Well, I have to say there are. I mean, when you count them, as of this past Wednesday, there is now about 7 to 8 factions. I'm not lying. I mean, think about it. You have Bullet Club Light, or otherwise known as Elite Light, which is Kenny Omega, the Good Brothers, Don Callis, and then by extension the Young Bucks. You have the Dark Order. You have Matt Hardy brand, which is now Matt, Private Party, and Butcher, Blade, and the Bunny. You have Death Triangle, which is Pac, Penta, and Phoenix. Who else? You have the Nightmare Family. You have the Inner Circle. And as of this past Wednesday, you have MJF's group, which I understand via spoiler for next week's show is called the Pinnacle. And I think you have another faction, Jurassic Express, we'll throw them in there as well. So you have basically about 8 factions. Some are trios, but could be expanded even more so. And you have a majority of them that are just bigger groups than they should be. And this, to me, and I'm sure a lot of people have talked about this, is a problem. It is a major problem. Because even though the spotlight by AEW standards is put on the factions and the groups that it needs to be put on, it's still too many. It's still too many. I mean, if there was one thing that WCW did, back in its day when it came to factions, is even though they may have had like 1, 2, or 3, or 4 of them, over time they reduced that to only 1, 2, or maybe 3. And that's it. And they primarily focused on the factions that had the most importance. I'm not saying the Dark Order or the Nightmare Family or any of these factions have importance. But the thing is, when you basically keep adding factions to your company's roster, you're kind of almost making talent get lost in the shuffle. Because you're going to have talents thinking, if not already, that, by being in a faction, they have importance. That they're going to get an opportunity to be pushed to that next level. But, in reality, they have to potentially wait a long time. They have to wait a long time until they get that opportunity, if they get it at all. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, this is where the whole having too many factions, as part of your program, as part of your company, hurts the stars involved. I mean, right now we have 8 factions, 8 of them that you're trying to put the spotlight on through different, methods. You're trying to put the spotlight on them with your AEW Dark show and your soon-to-debut AEW Dark Elevation show, which debuts this Monday on YouTube, as well as Dynamite. And then you try to put the spotlight on them, in a sense, by extension, through a Casino Battle Royal. It's just one of those situations to where you basically got to reevaluate the structure of your roster. I mean, if you want to have a faction here and there, that's fine. But make sure that the factions you want to be part of your company have importance. They have the spotlight put on them. They have storylines to be involved in. I mean, like I said, right now we're at 8 factions, and it looks like, as of this past Sunday at Revolution, as well as this past Wednesday, not this past Wednesday, but a week ago this past Wednesday, it looks like the Acclaim and Hybrid 2, or whatever they call H2 Hybrid, whatever they call, are going to become a group or something like that. I mean, the Acclaim, which is a great, team in its own right, up-and-coming team, you have them potentially partnering up with Angelico and Jack Evans. And it's like, where did this suddenly come from, right? Where did this suddenly come from? And then, speaking of additional factions, you potentially have the women becoming a faction. You have, Britt Baker. You have Maki Ito, you have Nyla Rose, Rebel. You know, you have potentially them becoming a faction with Vicky Guerrero accompanying them, if you will. But it's like, you know, but now the question is, when does it end? I mean, does Tony Khan, and I say this with all due respect to you, Tony, do you not understand that if you're going to have factions in your company, you're going to have wrestlers, you know, be part of these factions, that you need to have a limited amount? That if you're going to put people together that maybe, or I don't know, going a route that some people find critical might be a good route, and that's just put them together as a tag team, give them a storyline as to why they're a tag team, or they're becoming a tag team, and want to watch each other's back, would be the easier route to go, instead of saying, oh, here's faction number 1, here's faction number 2, here's faction number 3, here's faction number 4, here's faction number 5, here's faction number 6, here's faction number 7, here's faction number 8, here's faction number 9. Here's faction freaking number 10. I mean, enough is enough. Okay? I mean, we get it. You want to basically show that your organization, your company, gives everybody an opportunity to shine. They have story. They have purpose. But putting them in factions is not the answer. I mean, freaking WWE knows this better than anybody. They know this. I mean, you want a good example of what I'm talking about. Raw, as much as people may not like where it's going right now, only has 2 major factions. Hurt Business and Retribution, and it may just be down to 1 now, eventually, if they're going down the route everybody thinks they are with Retribution. SmackDown, in a sense, only has 1 or 2 factions. Mainly 1, and that's the whole Roman Reigns group. And that's it. And by extension, maybe Alpha Academy with, you know, Daniel Bryan being that extension. NXT has some factions too, but not that many. They have Leas Fantasma. They have, what else do they have? They have Leas Fantasma is the only one I could think of. So, and Imperium, they have Imperium by extension through NXT UK. So they have factions, but they don't have a peripheral of factions that oversaturates everything else. Or basically makes a cluster of the roster. They have factions involving, they have The Way with Johnny Gargano and Candice and Austin Theory and Hartwell, if you will. What's her name? Indy Hartwell. You know, they have them. And that's great. But guess what? They're not oversaturating the product with it. You can criticize WWE for doing all this BS and stuff all you want that doesn't make sense. But at least they realize that if they're going to put people in stables, no matter what the brand that they are is, you know, they're a part of is, that they make sure that stable has importance. That faction has importance. And what AEW is doing, look, again, I understand you want to give everybody an opportunity to shine. This isn't the way to do it. And it's, like I said, as crazy as it sounds, take that route that people find critical, get the certain people that you want to put as tag teams, and build your tag team division over that. I mean, around that. You want to show that you have the best tag team division? Guess what? Take wrestlers, break up the factions, put them just together a tag team. There you go. The point is, AEW is doing a lot of things right. True, they're going to still make mistakes because they're still in the infancy, 2 years into their existence. And, and they're still taking those baby steps, as they call it. But still, they are now at a point to where they should realize, baby steps or not, that what's turning people against them is the oversaturation of factions, no matter how big or small they are. And they need to stop doing that. Hopefully they do. Because by my count, if they keep going, we're going to have at least a dozen factions in AEW before 2021 is out. And that's a promise. That's not a speculation. That's a fact and promise. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think AEW needs to tone it down with the factions? Maybe disband some of these and let them go their own way? Maybe form regular tag teams to build the tag division? What are your thoughts? Comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say about it. And I am out.